Welcome to Flourish in Five. My name is Heather Lottinen, and every Friday I share a story, a lesson, or a quick idea with the goal of helping you gain a new perspective. I would really appreciate it if you would share this episode with your friends, especially if those friends have children. So I don't know where you're at with personal growth and development, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably somewhat into that genre. And I didn't get into these types of books that I've been reading until I was in my late 30s. And I often think to myself, what would my life look like if I had started this sooner? I think about young adulthood. That would be amazing if I was reading these books. But what if it happened even earlier? So when I had this thought, this is several years ago, I started trying to come up with some unique or inventive ways to get my kids involved in personal growth and development, but I wasn't sure of the best approach of this because most kids, I'm not gonna, hand them um, Atomic Habits, for instance, the book, and say, "Hey, here you go, 8-year-old, read this book." That's not gonna work. So when Ella was probably, let's see, she's 18 now, so she was maybe 10 or 11, 12 range. I actually paid her to read personal growth and development books. So I would give her a book and I would say, if you read this book and you either write out like one page of what you learned, or you just tell me, like, this was my biggest takeaway from the book so that I know she read it and she was at least somewhat paying attention, I will pay you a whole $10. $10 if you read this book. Well, she thought this was pretty great because she loves to read. So she read several of my books. I can't remember all of the ones she read, but I know that she did really well with it. And she has since not been reading these books, but I'd like to think I built somewhat of a foundation with her. Now with Freddie, oh, that's my son Evan. I just call him Freddie. I started paying him recently. I gave him the same offer. If you read these books, I'll pay you $10. And there were a few books that he read. Specifically, he read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens by Sean Covey. And he read that when he was about 11. He's now 13. And it was hilarious. You guys, he started coaching me. If something would come up, he would be like, excuse me, mom, do you know that you are choosing your reaction to that situation? Oh my gosh, it actually got a little bit obnoxious. And I thought, what have I created? I wrote down 3 books for you that if you have kids, you might want them to read. That was the first one. The second one is Success for Teens. Real teens talk about using the slight edge, and that's by the Success Foundation. That is a spin-off of the book The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, which I think we have talked about, or we talked about the compound effect, which is very similar. And then there's also The Energy Bus by John Gordon. He does have a book for kids. It's more like elementary because my kids both read the adult version of The Energy Bus. It's fun, it's an easy read. And I think Ella also read a few Dave Ramsey books because the most important thing to me is that my kids understand that they do not have to go in debt. They don't have to get a credit card. And if you're a Dave Ramsey fan, that you understand this, that the only loan that you will most likely ever really need to take out is the one for your home. But other than that, you should be able to buy everything with cash. And I want my kids to understand that. So that book was almost required reading, though I did pay them to do that. So I've paid them. That's worked well. Recently, though, you know how everyone's talking about having a gratitude journal, and it's so important to be grateful and write down what you're grateful for, and focus on the positive. And I thought that's really something I need to do with Freddie because he tends to be a slight bit on the negative. So I actually forgot I did this until he brought it up recently. I had put on there, I created this like chore chart of sorts in Google Sheets, and I had listed all of the chores they could do to earn money. And one of those was to write a gratitude journal. So if they wrote 3 things every day that they're thankful for in their gratitude journal, Monday through Friday, and then showed it to me, I would pay them for that. I'm literally paying my kids to be thankful. I know it's ridiculous, but I want them to get into the habit. I want them to focus on the good. So Evan recently started doing this, and he comes to me a couple of weeks ago with his digital version of his gratitude journal. And I read it. It was actually pretty good. And he said, "You owe me $20." And I said, $20? It seems like a lot of money to just write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And he said, "It's on the sheet. I saw it." I went back and looked, and sure enough, he was right. So I paid him. And then the next week he did it again, this time with a grin on his face. And he says to me, "This is the easiest money I've ever earned." I thought I may have priced that a little bit too high, but okay, all right. Do we really need to put a price tag on teaching our children how to be better humans? I don't think so. So I'm going to go with it. I want to start encouraging him. Well, both of them. Ella's 18 now, but I want to encourage him specifically to read a few more of these personal growth books because again, back to what I said at the beginning, I'm thinking in my mind, where would I be? Where would you be if you had started this journey 5, 10, 20 years sooner, or if it had been drilled into your brain when you were at an impressionable age? So if you have young children through teenagers, I would highly recommend bribing them to read these books or be thankful so that they may resist. That's fine. They resist everything. But I want I want to do it so that they build a foundation, so that they at least remember, and maybe when they get older, they think, "Oh yeah, my mom taught me that," or "I read that in that book." And sometimes I will still hear Ella coaching her friends around things that I know she has read in one of these books, and I think it's fantastic. Anyway, I encourage you to give it a try. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next episode.